We'll cut it off to size. And we'll go ahead and nail this in place. The nice thing about weather stripping windows is that we can use leftover pieces of weather stripping that we had from our door. And we'll come across to this side and nail our corner over here. Now in this case, we don't have to be concerned with having a little flap because we're just going to shut this window down onto the window sill and keep that cold air from blowing in underneath the window. And now, as before, we'll put a few nails across the middle. It's not as important to be sure that this weather stripping is tightly sealed, because when we shut the window, it'll seal itself. I'll show you what I mean here as soon as I get this nail in. There. We'll lower the window, and yeah, that fits pretty good. All right, now, we're going to want to run our weather stripping down the side of the window here. And we'll put our weather stripping up and measure it to length. Cut off a piece. And do some more tacking. I start at the top. And it's important to remember on the weather stripping on the side of the window here that we get it up tight up against the window, just like we did with the doors earlier. I'll put my nail up on top and get it started. And I'll put a nail on the bottom to hold it in place. And now I'll bring some nails all the way on down, making sure that the weather stripping fits up against the window tightly, because that's where our air leak is coming through, right in there. And again, I'd want to put a nail every couple of inches. All the way on down, being sure that the weather stripping fits snug. Before I set these nails in tight, I'm going to raise my window and see that it glides smoothly in its channel, and it does, so we can go ahead and finish the job. And the procedure for doing the other side is exactly the same. We just measure it to length and then nail it in. Now, although it's better to put the weather stripping on the inside of the window because it protects it from the weather, sometimes it looks a little unsightly to us. So let's go around to the outside and I'll show you how to put weather stripping on the outside of the window. One of the disadvantages of weather stripping the outside of the windows is that we've got to use a ladder. But that's okay. We just want to be sure that we're careful. Now, when we weather strip the outside of the window, we use the same technique that we use on the inside. We'll take our weather strip and measure it and cut it to length, and then we'll tack it to the outside window stop. We'll put our nails all the way down the weather stripping, just like we did on the inside, making sure that the weather stripping fits up snug against the window. Now that takes care of weather stripping as a form of weatherization. Let's turn now to caulk, the other material that we use to stop air infiltration. There are 4 basic types of caulk that we're going to find when we go to the store to make our purchase. The first kind is the oil-based caulk, which is the least expensive. It's usually 50 cents to $1 a tube, and it lasts from 2 to 3 years. Another type of caulk that we'll find will be the latex caulk, and this caulk is about $1 a tube, and it lasts from 3 to 5 years. A third kind that we'll find is the butyl caulk, and it costs from $2 to $2.50 a tube, and it generally lasts from 7 to 10 years. This caulk is real sticky. It sticks to just about anything you put it on, including the person that's applying it. And finally, we have our silicone caulks, which are the best on the market. They run from $4 to $6 a tube and generally last from 10 to 20 years. Now we have some specialty type caulks that are also available. This type here is called concrete in a tube. And the advantage to buying this type of caulk is that it matches the material that we're caulking around, for instance, the concrete around a foundation. We can purchase a caulk gun just about anywhere that you can buy caulk, and caulk guns usually run about $2 a piece. And we also have a type of caulk here which comes in a tube which is similar to a toothpaste tube. And we'd want to purchase this if we were having difficulty, for instance, in operating a caulk gun where we couldn't squeeze the handle too easily, or if we found a crack somewhere, a small crack around the house, and we didn't want to gear up with our caulk gun and everything. We can just take the lid off of this, apply a little bit of caulk to that crack, and then put it back on the shelf. The type of caulk that we're going to use today on the work we're going to do on this house, though, we're going to use the latex caulk, because this is about the best all-around caulk.
How do I decide how much caulking to buy?
Remember, I told you one of the advantages to caulk is that you don't have to do the whole house in one day. So go to the store, buy a couple of tubes, take it home and try it out, and if it works good for you, then you can go back and buy more when you have time.
I have storm windows. Do I still need to caulk?
Yes, you do. We need to caulk around the storm window where it meets the window frame, but before that we need to caulk the wooden primary window. So let's take a look at the tools we're going to need to do this job. Well, the first thing we'll need is a putty knife or a paint scraper to take off any old caulk that's still on the house, and a whisk broom or an oak paintbrush to clean up the dust with, a hammer in case we run into any nails that are still stuck in the house that are in our way, and I've got a piece of foam rubber here that I'm going to use to stuff some holes with. I've got a knife, my caulk, the caulking gun, of course, and I've got a rag and some water to help me clean up. So let's just get started, and we'll go through loading the caulking gun. What we'll do is we'll take the tube of caulk and place it in the base of the gun and let it drop right in. And push the plunger forward until the tube is firmly in the caulk gun. Now we'll want to cut the end off of the tube. Now this is important that we remember to cut the end of the tube at a 45-degree angle. Don't cut it straight across like this. We want to cut at a 45-degree angle. And I'll go ahead and cut this off here. You'll notice that the nozzle on this tube is tapered on the end, and that's to allow us to have either a small hole at the end when we cut it or a large hole. And I'm going to cut it down towards the narrow end, so we'll have a pretty small hole to start with. We can always make it bigger, but we can't make it smaller once we've cut it. Okay, now we've got it cut off there, and I'm going to take this little stick here and just break that little seal that's on the inside of it. Give her a couple of squeezes to see that it's coming out okay, and we're ready to go. Now when we're looking at our window and we're trying to determine where we want to caulk, we're looking for cracks that run along the fascia boards on the outside edges of the window here, and the cracks that run along the bottom of the window sill. So let's caulk those first. I'll set my ladder up. Again, I want to be careful that I got it on a good footing here so I don't fall down and hurt myself. And we'll climb on up here. Now, the reason that we cut the tube off at a 45-degree angle is so that we can lay a nice, even bead all the way down as we're caulking. So here we go. We'll start at the top, get our caulk going, and just come right on down. Now, don't worry about making a mess. Get the caulk on there first, and then we can always come back and smooth it down with our finger. The important thing is to get the caulk into the crack.
You make it look easy, but when I tried it, I could hardly get it to come out of the tube.
Well, what I recommend is that you keep the caulk warm. Keep it inside and keep it at room temperature until you're ready to use it, and it'll flow smoothly. The manufacturers recommend that you don't caulk outside at all if the temperature is below 40 degrees. So we'll fill up our cracks here down the side of the fascia board. And we'll stop right there for a moment with our caulking, because I want to show you another little trick we have here. If you'll recall, we didn't weather strip the inside of the top sash, because what I want to do with this top sash on this window is I'm going to want to caulk it instead of weather stripping it. So I've looked around the house here and I found a couple of wooden blocks that I'm going to use, and I'm going to take them and nail them in place under the upper sash. Now, the reason that I'm nailing a block under here instead of merely driving in a nail alone is the weight of the window will eventually bend the nail down and the window will sag. And that's what we're trying to prevent, is the window sagging down and coming open on us at the top. Okay, we've got that job done. And now we'll caulk our top window sash we just run a nice even bead down that seam on both sides and on the top. And again, don't worry if your bead doesn't look real smooth. We can come back with our finger this way and smooth it down. This does two things. It makes the work a little prettier, and it ensures that we force the caulk into the crack. Just like that.
That looks kind of messy. Is that stuff hard to get off?
Well, yes, it is. It comes off of me pretty easy, but it doesn't come off of my clothes too easy. Once it gets onto your clothes, that's just about it. Okay, now, we've got the upper sash caulked, and I want to spend some time now caulking this bad putty that we've got on our window panes. We can get a lot of air leaks coming in where we're missing putty around these panes, and we sure want to take care of that while we're here. So we'll just clean up all that dust. The caulk won't stick too good if we've got dust on there. We've got to get that off of there. And we'll caulk up these panes. And the technique for doing this is just like anything else that we're caulking with this caulking gun. Just keep the end of the gun moving, a nice even bead, and remember that we can always come back with our finger and smooth it out.